What's up, y'all? We back at it today. We're gonna finish up the American League. We're gonna talk about the Astros, the A's, Rangers, Mariners, and Angels. We're gonna start it off here with the Astros. Take a look at them. They're kind of a more of a hated team than more of a liked team, but they're still a good baseball team. The rotation, they got Jose Urquidy. They got Verlander back this year. He's getting a little bit older. So, and he's coming off Tommy John surgery, so we'll see how many innings he throws. Lance McCullers, not sure what his injury is, but they do have plenty of depth, so I'm sure they're not too worried. Framber Valdez and Luis Garcia should make up the regular five when everyone's healthy. Another option, they got Hector Neriz. Not a top-of-line option, but, showing to be pretty consistent in his career. Josh James, who I personally thought was going to be a lot better than what he was. I thought he was, 2018, I thought that was kind of who he was going to be out of the bullpen, but it looks like he's not quite as good and didn't really get too much of a chance last year. But he's still, moderately young, so we'll still see. They got Forrest Whitley, who I think is probably one of the best prospects in baseball still. He's getting a little bit older at 24. But, he's dealt with injuries, the COVID year. I think he's going to come up and definitely make a difference this year. Hunter Brown, another young pitcher with high potential. Curious to see what he does. I think both of these two, excuse me, I think both of these two at some point will come up and contribute some way, whether it be rotation, a few starts here and there, the bullpen. I think they will get called up at some point. Forrest Whitley probably early June, late June. And I think Hunter Brown maybe by the All-Star break or early August. In terms of other prospects, Peter Solomon is the only other one. Looks like he got a few innings last year out of the bullpen. Pretty good, so, maybe he gets called back up. Bullpen, they got Phil Matone. Or is it Maton? I think it's Matone. Pedro Baez, he's always consistent. 4 innings, I guess pretty small sample size. Okay, so he hasn't thrown very many innings since 2019. But I'm sure if he stays healthy, he's been a good pitcher over his entire career. Hector Neriz, who came over from the Phillies, I believe. Yeah. So brought him over to help offset the loss of Kendall Graveman. Ryan Stanek, he's hit or miss. Looks like sometimes he's a little bit better. But looks like he's settled down. So he'll be a good piece out of the bullpen. Christian Javier, spot starter. Definitely going to be like a long relief piece for them. Very good young pitcher, I think, personally. Montero, who throws a lot harder than I remember. I guess I remember him more from when he was on the Mets getting rocked pretty much every start. But it looks like he's still not too great of a pitcher, a 6.39 ERA. But, maybe he'll get his stuff in the zone a little bit better, dial back the walks. I'm guessing home runs probably hurt him. No, not really. 4 over 49 innings. That's not too bad. So, just curious to see what his deal is. Adam Morgan, he'll probably get a few innings here and there. Brian Abreu, he's still young. Looks like they're going to try and bring him along as a bullpen guy now. People thought he might be a starter, but he's still young, so we'll still see. Not too much in terms of other high upside prospects out of the bullpen. Closers, Ryan Presley, been good the last few years. Looks like he's finally got the hold on the bullpen or on the closing job. Behind the plate, Martin Maldonado, very good defender, slow, run into one here and there. Prospect Corey Lee, outside of Rutschman, probably the top catching prospect. Maybe like MJ Melendez or someone in the National League a little bit better, but I know Corey Lee's definitely highly looked upon. I mean, looks like he's a well-rounded guy with a cannon for an arm. Jason Castro, just a good backup catcher to have. Definitely a platoon guy. Can't hit lefties, but solid enough against righties. First base, Yuli Gurriel. Getting a little bit older, but he can still hit, still play the field. just a good guy to have. He is 37, but he's only been in the league for 5 years, coming over from Cuba. It's more like 6. Well, I guess it's only 36 games. So, but he's been good in his career so far. Second base, Jose Altuve. I think most of the guys are going to do more of the same. Younger pitchers probably take a step forward. Jose Altuve, you've been getting the same thing pretty much every year. All-star. They got Dario Lorenzo. Looks like he's, just kind of raw. Still, 19, single A, so probably 3-4 years away at least. Third base, they still got Alex Bregman, who took a major step back last year. Did miss some time. Yeah, missed quite a bit of time. But you're looking for more of this guy right here, 30 to 40 home runs, around about 285 to 300 average. It's kind of who he's been. They got Joe Perez, younger guy. A lot of these infielders are blocked by people at their position, but one that is open right now is shortstop, and I know Jeremy Pena has been starting for them so far, and I think 65 is definitely a low rating for him. I think he's definitely a lot better than that. They got Freeridis Nova, who I think is still a good prospect, pretty fast, good fielder, just got to put it together at the plate. They brought in Nico Goodrum, I guess to help offset Carlos Correa. Fielding-wise, he kind of does that. But at the plate, he leaves a little left to be desired. Does have good contact against lefties, and he is a switch hitter. So, good placeholder. If Jeremy Pena starts to struggle. And they got Aledmus Diaz, who, again, good fielder. Draws a lot of walks. Just good but not great hitter. Left field, more DH. Yordan Alvarez, MVP candidate, just a massive bat. Kind of a liability in the field, in my opinion, especially in that difficult left field in Minute Maid. So I think he'll probably DH most every game. They do have Michael Brantley still, though. Ridiculous contact hitter, especially against righties. Starting to get a little bit older, slowing down a step. So, curious to see if they keep him at the top of the lineup. Maybe you shift him towards the middle. Chasm Mccormick, one of the best defensive outfielders in the game, runs a lot of balls down. Starting to come around at the plate. Jake Myers, kind of the same. They got two guys that are kind of similar. Pedro Leon, cannon of an arm. Maybe he slots into a corner outfield spot, just to find time, because I think he'll probably stay the center fielder. Or maybe Jose Siri, he's got ridiculous speed too. Tyler Whitaker, just kind of another good fielder, just waiting for the bat to come around. Young guy, he's probably a few years away. I don't think that these two will challenge him for a spot, and I think Michael Brantley will probably be either gone or retired by then, and you've really only got one placeholder in the outfield, because I think Yordan either moves to first or is just, career DH. I don't see him taking a massive step forward in the field, but you really only got one set in stone starting outfielder in Kyle Tucker, and I think he does stay in right field, honestly. You've got Lewis Brinson, maybe they can tap into his potential a little bit. Big, strong guy. You would think he'd, hit better than what he has. But, maybe the trash cans in Houston can help him a little bit. I already touched on Jose Siri a little bit. Really just a speed guy. Fourth, fifth outfielder type guy. Right field, we already touched on Kyle Tucker. I think he's set in stone as their right fielder. Very good young player. I see him having an all-star season. Matthew Barefoot, I guess he doesn't wear shoes. Good fielder, good speed. Same thing, bat's got to come around. Maybe he gets some at-bats this year. Move on to the Angels, right field. I believe they're going with Joe Adell. I don't know if they're going Joe Adell on left or Joe Adell on right. And I know Brandon Marsh is the other starter. But right now they're going him. And I think he'll have a slow start to the season. But I think around June he'll start to pick it up and really start putting things together and have a good season. Taylor Ward, if Joe Adell does struggle, they'll probably give a lot of at-bats to him. I'd really like to see them give Joe Adell a chance this year. Center field, Mike Trout is Mike Trout. If he's healthy, probably top 3 player in the game, and he's definitely not number 3. They do got some prospects. Jordan Adams, I think he comes up either late this season or early next. Magneuris Sierra, another Marlins outfielder that is now in the AL West. Maybe he starts to hit the ball. Maybe he steals a spot, corner spot. Torrey Hunter Jr., dad was Torrey Hunter, perennial all-star. Maybe he starts hitting like his dad and steals a spot. Deshaun Knowles, I think he's probably a couple years away still. Excuse me. Left field, they did cut Justin Upton or DFA him, but I don't think he's on the Angels anymore, and I don't believe that he got traded. But we already touched on Brandon Marsh. I don't know if he's starting in left or Joe Adell is, but I know that they're starting at the corners, and I think he'll have a good year this year. I think he's going to add more power. He's a pretty big guy. I think he hits more, probably like 15 to 20 home runs this year. Shortstop, they got David Fletcher. I think he's going to move back to second base once Jeremiah Jackson is ready, and I think that might be mid-season, because at second base, right now they're rocking with Matt Duffy, who's kind of just a utility guy. Mike Stefanich, if you watch live ABs on Momentum, he's makes constant appearances. He's, I personally think he has a good swing. Maybe he gets called up this year. I think he should personally, at least just from what I've seen. They got Kyron Paris. Also, I think he's probably a couple years away. I think Jeremiah Jackson is probably closer to the majors than the game thinks. Tyler Wade, just a utility guy, pinch runner at the end of games. They did Brendan Davis. He's been a talked about prospect for a while, or at least I know who he is for the most part. Don't really remember how, but maybe I have his card or something. I'm not sure. Third base, they got Anthony Rendon, who he is looking to stay healthy ever since he had a healthy 2020. Just kind of took a step back in the power department. But last year, he only played 58 games. So, he's looking to have a healthy season. Jack Mayfield, utility guy. Not too much in terms of prospects. Kevin Mason, they're looking for him to regain his prospect status. He's kind of taking a step back. Second base, I guess they could go Luis Rengifo, sorry. He's, still young, has a chance to, cement himself in the starting lineup. Adrian Placencia, he's still a young guy, but it looks like he's not too far off the majors. So, his rating might be boosted up by the fielding. He looks to be a good fielder. But, maybe he is close. First base, Jared Walsh. I think he had a very good season last year. Obviously very good against righties. Good power against lefties still, but not very much contact. So I look to improve on that. Good enough fielder. Good chance to make the All-Star team, probably, I would say. First base isn't as deep in the American League. Catcher, you got Max Stassi. Very good defender. Good power for a catcher. Decent fielding. Or decent contact, sorry. He's their catcher for right now. Romine, backup catcher. They got Kurt Suzuki, he's just going to play until he can't anymore. I think this will probably be his last year. He's been in the league since 2007, so he's had a very long career, and I would deem it successful. Not the most outrageous stats, but just a good catcher to have on the team. They do have Edward Quero. He's a young guy. Looks like he's got decent potential. Looks to just be really good all around. Not great at one particular thing, but good at all. Back into the bullpen, they got Raisel Iglesias. One of the better closers in the game. I think Angels will give him more leads to protect this year. He'll be able to knock down some more saves. Bullpen, they got Aaron Loop. Good lefty. Under a 1 ERA. Oh, wow, I didn't know that last year. So, he's going to look to continue that success, obviously. Ryan Tepera comes over from Chicago in general, Cubs and White Sox last year. So, they'll look to have, righty-lefty at the back end of the bullpen. Or maybe he's a lefty. So they'll have righty-lefty as their two setup men, so that's good to have. Wander Suero going to look to clean his ERA up a little bit. Archie Bradley comes over from the Phillies. Looks like he'll be more of a middle reliever instead of a closer. Like Mayers, looks like he threw a lot of innings last year. Cesar Valdez, probably his, one of his last years. Very soft thrower. Yeah, mid-80s. Otherwise considered 80 poo, personally. But, it worked in 2020. Didn't work as much any of the other years. Jose Suarez, young pitcher. Looks like he is a spot starter. Maybe he comes along as a starter. Maybe they use him in the bullpen. But, injuries do happen. Looks like they've got okay depth. Kyle Bearclaw, he's there. Maybe he can get back in the majors and pitch some innings. A couple young guys down here. Not too much. Starters, they have Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, he would love to continue what he did last year. 23 starts, 9-2, and then at the plate, almost 50 home runs, 26 stolen bases. 257 average, a little low. You can live with it, kind of. Maybe you look for more of one of these years, at least in terms of average, but you might lose some home runs, or maybe you have the same amount of home runs. Who knows? But he's definitely a very, very fun player to watch. They brought in Thor over from the Mets, Noah Syndergaard. He hasn't been healthy in, a few years. Really season. He only pitched 2 innings in 2 games last year. So I guess the last time he really pitched was 2019, and he had kind of taken a step back from where he was. So, curious to see what he does in LA. In the AL West, they got some big ballparks out there, so we'll see what he does. But definitely a good addition for them, I think. Patrick Sandoval, good young pitcher. Looks full season. Brought in Michael Lorenzen. They're going to try him out as a starter. He has started a few games in his career. Last time he was really a full-time starter was 2015. That's kind of the highest ERA of his career outside of last season. But, definitely a good pitcher. I think he's more suited for the bullpen, but maybe he does good. Griffin Canning, I think he'll come up and give them good innings if, he gets hurt or Shohei needs to take some days off. Or Michael Lorenzen shows he is better suited for the bullpen. And, of course, they got Jaime Bria. Maybe he comes in and he starts over Bria. Who knows? Reed Detmers, I think he's going to factor in probably the bullpen this year and make spot starts here and there when needed. Sam Bachman, probably the same thing. Other prospects, not really. So they're kind of light at pitching outside of, their top guys, but it's a pretty good group of top guys to have. So I think they'll be improved this year. Oakland A's, they have Frankie Montas for the time being. We'll see how long they keep him. He's been rumored as a trade piece for, pretty much the whole offseason. But nothing's came to yet, so he is still in Oakland. Gunnar Hoagland, Oakland's not a good team this year. I think he'll get a chance to cement himself in the rotation. James Caprillion, probably candidate to get traded by the trade deadline. Maybe he stays. Cole Irvin, kind of the same thing. These two are kind of in the same boat. They're going to try and get, what they can out of them this year and then probably flip them at the deadline. Frankie Montas is really their one big remaining piece that I think will get traded. It's just a matter of time. They got JT Ginn or Jen, depends on who you ask. I think it's Ginn. He'll start the season in the minors. I think he comes up probably around the All-Star break and makes his debut. Brett Honeywell is going to get his chance to, start out in Oakland. He's in Tampa Bay where they had about 55,000 starters. He just couldn't find time in the rotation. Who else they got? Ryan Cusick. He's probably a year or two away still. Adam Mahler. I don't know too much about him. It says he's in the majors, though, so I guess he's going to factor in this year. They are hurting in terms of prospects. As you see, it's a lot of older guys, not much potential. Really the only guy under like 25, 26 is Joey Estes. And it doesn't look like he's anything too crazy. Bullpen, they got some guys. Adam Kolarek, he's going to look for more innings this year. Deolis Guerrera, if he gives the A's the same season they did last year, they'd be happy with it, I think. Pruitt needs more innings. Paul Blackburn, spot starter, probably going to be more of a reliever this year. Let the young guys take the starts, and he's going to need to improve a little bit. Strike some more people out than what he is. A couple young guys here. AJ Puk, I think is still, or Puck, AJ Puck, I think still has a chance to start, but maybe they gear him more for the bullpen to keep him healthy, because he's been a top prospect since he got drafted. And he hasn't really pitched much the last few years. Didn't pitch at all in 2020, but I think he'd be good in a late inning role. So maybe they look to keep him more in that kind of deal. They just got kind of a lot of guys that look pretty similar, honestly. They do have Lou Trevino, so maybe AJ Puck takes over for him. Maybe he keeps the closer role. He didn't do anything to lose it last year. Behind the plate, they do have Sean Murphy. I think he'll have an all-star season this year. I think the 216 average will get bumped up a considerable amount. And in the Matt Olson trade with the Braves, they did bring in Shea Langeliers, who obviously is going to play a part in their future at some point, whether it be as a catcher, or maybe they move Sean Murphy, or one of them moves somewhere else. They still have Stephen Vogt. Didn't think he was still in baseball, let alone still in Oakland, or came back to Oakland. So he's probably a backup or organizational depth at this point. They still have C.J. Rodriguez. Looks like he's still a few years away, honestly. First base, Tyler Soderstrom, who also was drafted as a catcher. So it looks like they, cleared the logjam a little bit, moved him to first. He's probably still a year or two away. He's definitely a bat first guy, so maybe that's why they moved him to first. That's really all they got prospect wise. I mean, I guess they got Lawrence Butler, but obviously doesn't have the same ceiling as Soderstrom. Second base, they got Tony Kemp. He'll probably stay this whole season there, and just kind of give him the same thing he did last year. Same with Jed Lowry. Both of them I doubt have too much trade value. They got Max Muncy, who they drafted last year. He's got a few years before he comes up. So, I mean, these are your second baseman going forward, most likely. Third base, they got Sheldon Noose. Takes over for Matt Chapman, following the trade to the Blue Jays. So maybe he, takes his bigger role and shines with it. Or maybe he doesn't. But if he doesn't, they got, a few prospects here. Nothing really crazy in terms of prospects. They got Kevin Smith, who came over from the Blue Jays, who I think he's better than what he's currently slated at as a 60. I think he's better than that. I think he's more MLB ready. They got Zach Galoff and Jeremy Ironman. Neither one of them look too crazy. He looks like more of a glove first guy with good speed, and he looks like he can hit a little bit more, but looks like he's still got a ways to go. Shortstop, Elvis Andrus. They're going to ride him until Robert Plazon's ready. He might come up as a teenager, but I think he'll probably come up next year, I don't think they're going to rush him up, unless they just really start winning games. So he'll probably be a 2023 guy. Logan Davidson probably will come up sooner, just being that he's older. Good fielder. Maybe they trade Elvis Andrus and let him or Nick Allen try and take the job. Neither one of them too much in terms of hitting, but good fielders. And maybe they hit better when they get to the major league level. Left field, Seth Brown, good power, good fielder. Just gotta hit the ball more consistently. Chad Pinder, good fourth outfielder to have. Lazaro Armenteros, I think he probably comes up this year or maybe next, but I think he'll get a chance to earn a starting spot. Center field, they got Ramon Loriano. Maybe he still has a suspension. I'm not sure, but I don't think he is injured. So he must still be serving a suspension from carrying over from last year. But he is one of the better center fielders in the game. But they also did trade for Christian Pache from the Braves in the Matt Olson trade, who, personally, I don't think the Braves should have traded him. I think they should have tried everything they could to hold on to him. I think they should have traded Drew Waters before him. So, that's just my personal opinion. I think Pache is going to be very, very good. This is where it looks like they have most of their prospects at it. Gabriel Maciel, he's probably, I think he comes up late this year. Maybe he comes up next. Brian Bulves, he looks very good all around. Goldberg looks like, a good fielder. He'll probably develop into a fourth outfielder. Buddy Reed, fast. Just got to develop more all-around skills. Pedro Pineda, 18 years old, and has a good all-around skill set already, so he'll probably develop pretty well. A couple of just depth guys. Right field, they got Billy McKinney. So really the outfield, they got Armenteros, Pache, even Loriano, he's still only 27, Maciel, Buelvis, and Pineda. So, they got three outfield spots because no one's really holding it down besides Loriano. And I think Loriano shifts to right and lets Pache play center. And, they go about like that because, they've only got Billy McKinney and Steven Piscotty. And, neither one of them are horrible, but they're not on the same talent level as these two. And not really much else prospect-wise over there. Move on to the Mariners. Right field, Mitch Haniger, one of the better right fielders, just in terms of power and average, an average defender, but definitely above average at the plate. They've got Alberto Rodriguez. I don't believe he has any relation to Julio, who we'll get to in just a second, but he looks to be okay, probably a couple years away. Now, the prize prospect, pretty much in all baseball outside of like Bobby Witt and Adley Rutschman. Julio Rodriguez, phenomenal player. Kind of struggling to start the season right now, striking out a lot, but I think he will. I think he'll get that under check, and he'll definitely have a very good season. Definitely a Rookie of the Year candidate. Kyle Lewis, speaking of Rookie of the Year, won Rookie of the Year in 2020, and only played 36 games last year due to injury. So he's going to look to come back. I think he's still very good. But they got Mitch Haniger in right. Julio looks like he's taking over center field. And, they got Winker and Kellnick in left. And, one of them will usually DH. I think Winker will probably be the DH. So I think right now Kyle Lewis is the odd man out. But if they trade Mitch Haniger, I think he can slot into right field. They brought in Billy Hamilton. Still a good defender. Still one of the fastest guys in the league. Never really figured out how to hit the ball, but definitely a good outfielder to have in case of injury. Taylor Trammell, still, a good prospect. Apparently more of a power guy at this point, so he's got to hit the ball for average a little bit more. Decent fielder, but still young, so can definitely still develop. Jesse Winker, at times looks like Barry Bonds, and then at times looks like he doesn't know what a baseball bat is. So personally, I think Jesse Winker is a candidate to hit 30-plus home runs and stay at the 300 average. I think he'll have an all-star season in Seattle. Jared Kellnick, I think he's going to take a big step forward, probably 20 to 25 home runs and like a 250 to 260 average over a full season. Not too much else. I mean, most of their prospects are coming up right now at the same time, outside of Trebell. I mean, I guess you got Alberto Rodriguez, but yeah, most everybody outfield-wise is up right now. Shortstop J.P. Crawford took a step forward last year. I think he's going to hit more home runs this year, but definitely, and I think he's going to hit for a higher average. I think he's going to probably sit around 15 home runs and a 290-ish average. They got Noel Marte, another good prospect. He's probably a year away at most. Third base, they brought in Eugenio Suarez, also from the Reds, in the Jesse Winker trade. As you see, 30-plus home runs, under 200 average. He sells out pretty much every swing. So, curious to see if they play him for the whole season. I don't think it'll last long before they just kind of turn to the younger guys that have more potential. Because Eugenio Suarez kind of is what he is. But, I mean, he is a good power bat, so, maybe they give him all the chances. Abraham Toro came over in the Kendall Graveman trade last year. Didn't look too good. Still kind of a lopsided trade. But if he can improve upon last season, maybe he turns that narrative around and makes it look a little more even. They got Joe Rizzo. He's just kind of a good depth prospect to have, in case of injury, I guess. Second base. Goodness, they brought in Adam Frazier from the Padres, to be their leadoff guy. I think he's going to do very well, especially with all the best he has behind him. Dylan Moore, good power, but doesn't hit for very much average, but he's a good fielder, and yeah, he's a super utility guy. Plays every position besides pitcher and catcher. So just really a guy you want to have on your team. But if he hits for more average, I think he can turn into an everyday guy. But yeah, right now he's just kind of a utility guy, fill in when people need a day off. Not too much in terms of prospects. First base, they got Ty France. Took a huge step forward last year. I think he can take another step forward, probably 25 to 30 home runs this year. And I honestly think he will. Probably about the same average. Mike Ford and Evan White, they're just kind of depth guys at this point. Nothing else really in terms of prospects. Behind the plate, they do have, a decent amount of talent. Tom Murphy, hits lefties hard, doesn't hit righties too much at all. Good fielder behind the plate, a little bit older. Brian O'Keefe, he's got major league talent, but, they got a lot of other guys. Harry Ford, good prospect and good young prospect at catcher. Good all-around guy. He's probably 2 to 3 years away. I think he comes up fairly young. Cal Raleigh, probably kind of the same as last year. Come up and give him some at-bats, but not too much in terms of every day unless injury happens. Luis Torrens hits lefties hard. Righties not quite as much, same as Tom Murphy. Just not as good of a fielder. So, more of a DH so far this year, and I think that's probably what he'll be most of the time against lefties only. Brought in Chance Sisco. At one time was a highly regarded prospect, but, now not so much. So he's going to look to, regain some of that and hopefully get some time in the majors this year. Bullpen, Paul Sewald, who I don't think will be their closer this year. A lot of wins for a reliever, 10 wins and 11 saves. So I think he'll be, late inning guy, but not quite their closer. I think their closer is going to either be Steckenrider or Diego Castillo. Both good options. Other options, they got Casey Sadler. I'm not even going to try that name. I just, the middle part of it's messing me up. Masiewicz, I guess maybe that sounds close. Sergio Romo, he's getting up there in age. That's probably one of his last years. Andres Munoz, 100 plus pretty much every time. Definitely a good young arm to have. Justice Sheffield, I guess, is not going to be a starter anymore. He hasn't done too well in that role. So maybe he can find his stuff at the bullpen. Eric Swanson, another good option. Sal Romano, another good option. If he can get the walks down and, keep the ball out of the air. But, I mean, they've got a decent amount of options out of the bullpen. Starters, they brought in Robbie Ray. Basically traded Robbie Ray for Yusei Kikuchi, with the Blue Jays. And I would definitely take Robbie Ray every day of the week. Won a Cy Young last year. I think he regresses a little bit, but not too much. But I don't think he's going to be, top 2 or 3 pitcher in the American League like he was last year. But, maybe he is. Maybe, finds that consistency and does that. Logan Gilbert, still young, 24. He's going to look to take a step forward in his development, and I think he will. So, they've got a good rotation this year. They can definitely make some noise. Chris Flexon, modern-day Greg Maddux is what he was being deemed as last year. Maybe he does, keep improving. He's still fairly young at 27. Marco Gonzalez, good as a number 4, definitely a good starter to have. Will keep you in games and won't really take you out of too many. George Kirby, one of their top prospects. He'll probably come up and, barring injury, start a few games. If injuries do happen, I think he'll make a lot of starts. Matt Brash made his first start the other day. Didn't do too bad. Did lose to the White Sox. Emerson Hancock, I think, is probably a year or 2 away, but another top prospect. So, they got 3 top guys, and that's not even counting Logan Gilbert, who's not a prospect anymore, but still very young. But they've got 4 pitchers under 24 and under who have front of the line potential. So that's always good to have going forward. Levi Stout, he throws hard. It looks like he's got decent potential. They got a couple depth guys, but they're definitely set up good for the future. I think they are going to take a step forward this year and hopefully push for a playoff spot. Haven't made it since 2001, so would love to see them do good. And then we got the Texas Rangers, who made some moves, but I don't think they made enough moves personally in the rotation. They've got John Gray, they brought him in, maybe getting him away from Colorado, maybe he does something more like this year, mid to high 3 ERA. We'll just have to wait and see, because the ball does fly better in course. So just getting him out of there, maybe he resurrects his career a little bit. They've got Cole Winn, good young starter. I think he'll come up probably late June to closer to the All-Star break, make some starts down the stretch. Especially if they're kind of middle contention, kind of starting to fall out. I think they'll bring him up. Dane Dunning, came over in the Lance Lynn trade with the White Sox a couple years ago. They're going to look for him to take a step forward, because right now that trade's not looking too good for them. But, Dane Dunning's still fairly young, so they got Koei Ariara, came over from Japan, last year, didn't do too well. You don't want to see an ERA start with a 6. That's never good. So he's going to look to bring some success from Japan over to the United States this year. Jack Leiter, top pitching prospect. I think he's probably a year away. I don't think he's gotten too much time in the minors so far, but definitely a good, very good prospect to have going forward. Owen White, maybe he finds a bullpen role this year. Looks like he's very good at striking guys out, so maybe he comes up and gives some innings in the bullpen. Taylor Hearn, he's probably going to be number 4 or 5 guy for him. Tropiano, I think probably won't make more than a couple starts. Martin Perez, he's okay. Nothing spectacular, just kind of a guy that goes out and gives you innings. But most of their prospects are pretty close to the majors, or in the majors already. Out AJ Alexey, he looks like he's kind of an innings eater kind of guy at this point in his career. He's got to get the walks under control. 17 walks in 23 innings is not good. But they don't have too much else in terms of prospects down here. Bullpen, they got John King. He looks pretty good. Just going to give them more of the same. Matt Bush, he's carved out a career in the bullpen for him. But got to stay healthy. He's kind of battled injuries. Hasn't pitched since 2018, really. I mean, he pitched 4 innings last year, but, that's not really a big role like he was 4 years ago now. It's 2022. But he was going to look to get back to, these 2 seasons right here. I think he does have a good chance to do it. They brought in Dan Winkler. He's an okay bullpen arm. Colby Allard, I think, can still be a starter personally. I think he's still got good potential. He's only 24. I wouldn't see any reason to not try him as a starter still. I mean, yeah, he's 3-12. 5.41 ERA is not as bad as it could be. I think they need to give him another chance in the rotation. Brett Martin, good young bullpen arm. Throws hard, doesn't really walk too many guys, doesn't give up too many home runs. Just a couple guys here and there. They brought in Garrett Richards, former starter. Looks like he's going to be strictly a bullpen guy for them, I guess. They're going to let the young guys start. Spencer Howard, I think, is still a starter. I think they need to still try him in the rotation before they give up on him. Vanasco and Albert Abreu are also starters. I don't know why they are. Oh, well, I mean, coming over from the Yankees, he didn't start for the Yankees, but the Yankees are a lot deeper than the Rangers, so I'd like to see them try both of them in the rotation still. Back into the bullpen, they got Joe Barlow. Looks like he'll be the full-time closer this year. And they brought in Greg Holland, who might eat some innings for him this year. They traded for Mitch Garver. They traded away Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to the Twins and brought in Mitch Garver. And, I mean, not a bad trade to make, but, they got Sam Huff, who I think is the catcher of the future for them, until proven otherwise. And they also have Jonah Heim and Yoel Pozo. But, they brought in Garver, which he's a good, obviously a very good catcher, but, older. And I don't think I don't think the Rangers are as much of a win-now team as that move kind of was. I think they should have let Sam Huff develop, or maybe they move Mitch Garver or Sam Huff to another position along with Jonah. I think Jonah Heim probably sticks behind the plate. Maybe they move Sam Huff to first and Mitch Garver DHs. First base, they got Nathaniel Lowe, good, just a good all-around hitter. I think he'll be more 25 to 30 home runs this year. Putting a little more loft in the swing. Prospects, Dustin Harris looks like he's about ready to come up. Good hitter, good speed, decent fielder. So maybe we see him later in the season. Second base, one of their, multi-$100 million signings, Marcus Semien. One of the best second basemen in the league. I think he's going to definitely give a jolt to their lineup. Look for him to take a step forward, or not even take a step forward. You'll take 45 home runs and 100 RBIs all year long. Prospect-wise, they got Josh Smith. He looks pretty good. He'll probably come up and give them some at-bats this year. In terms of other prospects, Justin Foscue, he's good. Looking to get him some at-bats this year. Let's see, third base, Charlie Culberson looks like he's a starter right now, along with Andy Ibanez and Brad Miller. So it looks like they're kind of going three-headed monster. They do have Josh Jung, though, who probably is their third baseman of the future. So I think they'll look to give him as many at-bats as possible this year, unless one of these three just really stand out above the rest. Brad Miller, he's got a good power bat. It looks like they also brought in Matt Carpenter. They got Ezekiel Duran. He's a good young guy. I think he's probably still a couple years before he gets up to the majors. Shortstop brought in Corey Seager. Also a few $100 million. But he's definitely going to make their lineup a lot better than it was last year. Luis Angel Acuna, Ronald Acuna's little brother. Maybe he can find what his brother has and contributes to them. But infield is much improved with Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. They didn't really have too much shortstop depth coming into the year, so Seager was definitely a good signing. And second base they do have Smith and Foscue, but I think Semien gives them a lot more than what they would have had. Third base, I think Josh Jung probably comes up and challenges these three for playing time. Left field, Solak, another young guy that, he kind of needs to hit the ball more consistently, but, he provides a good speed, utility guy. So, he'll look to stick, but, maybe they move one of the third basemen into left field. You've got Willie Calhoun too. I think he'll take a step forward this year. I think he's still one of the better underrated bats. In 83 games, he hit 20 home runs and hit 270. But, he's never really had the chance to start every game. So maybe he gets a chance this year if healthy. Steele Walker, he came over in the Lance Lynn trade as well, I believe. Or no, the Nomar Mazara trade, with the White Sox. And he hasn't really proved too much yet. Dolis Garcia, obviously came up last year and started off really hot, kind of cooled down a little bit later in the season. So he'll look to do that over a full season this year. And, his hot start, 243 average isn't the best, isn't horrible. So he'll look to improve on that. 30 home runs is always nice, though. Leody Tavares, good young prospect. I think he probably slots into left field if they keep Garcia in center. And Bubba Thompson, maybe he comes up at some point this year and gets him at bats. But I think Tavares will come up probably sometime in June and start getting at bats. He just got to hit more consistently. In right field, they got Cole Calhoun, who's just kind of a placeholder. They got Aaron Savala. He's probably a couple years away. So in terms of outfield, I think these two will start, and maybe Bubba Thompson comes up, and I would rather see Willie Calhoun. Solak, he's got good speed, but he doesn't really offer much else. I know the contact versus left looks high, but I don't think he's that good of a hitter personally. Only knock on Willie Calhoun, he's a little slower, and his field, he's not a very good fielder. But I think he offers more with the bat than Eli White and Nick Solak do. And then, of course, you got Seager, and then maybe that's how they get all these guys incorporated. But, that'll do it for the teams. I think the team to beat is still probably the Astros, but I think the Mariners could leapfrog them this year if they all stay healthy and, everyone has a consistent season. So I think those two teams will battle for first. I think the Angels will probably be the third team, and they'll probably look for a wild card spot. Even though they do have Rendon and Trout and Shohei, I think they're still not really a complete team. They got a lot of questions, a lot of young guys. Maybe the Rangers are right there with them. They're probably 3 and 4. Kind of like the Mariners and Astros are 1 and 2. I think the Angels and Rangers are 3 and 4. They'll battle it out. Just kind of depends on who progresses and who has a better season. I think the Rangers are closer to 4 than 3, though, because the rotation has too many question marks, and the Oakland A's are really just trying to get through the season and see who can progress and see what kind of young guys can stake their claim in the everyday lineup and rotation. But, I'll see y'all in the next one. If you got any different opinions, let me know. I'll see y'all later. Peace.